Boker Tov, Chag Sameach, Chag Purim Sameach, Holistic and Purim. Today's daf is daf Pei Zayin and Sanhedrin as we learn for Achenu Kol Beis Yisrael and Asurim Batzar V'Shivya. We're up to Tana Rabbanan exactly halfway down the page. We're discussing the issue of Zakei Mamre, and we said that Kamta Alisa, the pasuk says Ki Poli Memcha Davar B'Mishpat Ben Dam L'Dam Ben Din L'Din Ben Nega L'Nega V'Eiros B'Sharecha V'Kamta Alisa L'Makom Asher Chashem L'Kecha Ba. And it says you'll go up to that place. So, Kamta Lisa, what is that place? Of course, that's the Bezdin Gadol, the Sanhedrin in Yerushalayim, in the base of Mikdash and the Lishchas HaGazas. But the Gemara went on to say, right before this Tana Rabbah, the Gemara said, this teaches us that the place is Garmin. In other words, that the Zaken Mamre cannot argue. The whole belief Zaken Mamre means he's a educated rabbi. He's a rabbi who's been confirmed and smicha and all that. And he's a posek, but he disagrees with the Bezdin Gadol of Yerushalayim. And it says, Elamokim, go up to that place, Melamed Shamokim Gorim. But it also means that it teaches us that the Beis HaMikdash is the highest place in Eretz Yisrael, which we said yesterday it could be that it's the highest place. Depends on what the topography was like, especially in those days. Or it could be that with the walls of the Beis HaMikdash is actually the highest place. And it says and Eretz Yisrael is the highest of all lands. Eretz Yisrael. Some take this literally, and some say, Marsha says that the meaning is that it's the center of the world. That Yerushalayim is the center of the world. As we know that halachically, the international dateline is based on 180 degrees around the globe from Yerushalayim. In other words, there's a question halachically. It's pretty close to where it is now. You have to, there's real issues. If it comes out, in the middle of a country, what do you do with the international dateline? What day is it? But halachically, the international dateline would be exactly halfway around the world from Yerushalayim. So Eretz Yisrael is considered the middle of the world, Merkaz HaOlam, and that's why the Vir of Eretz Yisrael makes you smart. And Yosef Makam Amogesh Lechein Yashvu Bochel Mesros. And others say the Maralmi Prague says that Gavoa means not literally, but it means that the Kedusha is greater, and everything which is more holy is considered higher. That's another idea in the concept of Eretz Yisrael being the highest place in the world. It could be literally, or it could mean figuratively, means that it has the highest Kedusha. So we're going on to explain this idea of Ki Yipoli Mimcha. Tana Rabbanan, where we left off yesterday, halfway down the page. Zaken Mamre Ein Chayav. So when is the Zaken Mamre? What is he, if he argues about what? What does he have to argue with the Bezdin Gadol Yerushalayim about? So we said yesterday, it's an issue, dam ladam, din ladin, nega lanega, divrei rivos. What does all that mean? By the way, divrei rivos, Mefarshim also say, your nice shot is that when ki poli mimcha davar, when you're not sure, there's a question what the halacha is. Ki poli mimcha could also be explained in this idea, when things are strange to you. We want to know, why are the Jews hated among all the world? Why is it so different that everybody hates us and they come out with ridiculous claims like the UN yesterday claimed that we committed terrible things against the population in Gaza? Why are we killed and destroyed and everything? Why is everybody against us? You know why? Because of divrei rivos b'sharecha, because of the infighting that goes on among the Jews. That contributes to the reason why we are condemned in the world. Tana Rabbanan. May have three machlokas over here. What does the argument have to be about? So Rav Meir says that it's only chayav if he disagreed with the Bezdin Gadol Yerushalayim about something, a serious matter that involves a shgaga, if he did a chatas, if he did it b'shogeg, and something where if he did it b'mezid, it's chayav kores. Kores means min hashamayim. So only something like that. Only something like that. Now, how does that fit in? The Gemara is going to say, how does that fit in with the things we talked about before? The Nigei Batim, Charamim, Aracha, Hekdeshos, all the things that we refer to in the Pasuk. He said, Hadin, Dam Ladam, Din Ladin, Ben Dam Ziva, Dam Nida, Ben Nefashis, Den Mamras, Den Makos. How is that all something that is Davar Shigasachatas in Zdono Kores? But that's what the mayor says. Rabbi Yehuda says, no. Al Davar Sheikar Midavar, it has to be something which it says befavorish in the Torah. And the rabbis interpret, the rabbis explain what it is. Even if it's not in the Torah, just something that the rabbis interpreted or said them. Even if he argues with the Zaken Mamre with the Bezdin Gadol about that, he's also the halacha of the Zaken Mamre takes effect, and he is killed if he's guilty of this, of arguing with them, and as we said, going back to his town and paskening that way and teaching that way, then he's killed with cherek. In my time of Rav Meir, what's Rav Meir's reason why it has to be only something? He says, oh, if it's din rabbanan, that's not a reason to call him a zakam marim. Zakam marim is only if he argues about something where if he did it b'mezid, the sin is if he didn't b'mezid, chayav kares. Gomer davar davar it says ki poli mcha davar, and you learn a davar from another place. It says ki poli mcha davar la mishpat. Iksevasam nelam davar me'enei kol by parham davar shel ksibet beginning of Vayikra. When the whole Bnei Yisrael followed a wrong halacha that was paskin wrong by the Beis Gadol, it says ve'nelam davar be'einei hakol. And in Huriyus we explain we're talking about something where zonakar shigas chatas. We're talking about the malahol davar shechayv al zonakar shigas chatas. Afkan davar shechayv al zonakar shigas chatas. That's Rav Meir's opinion. Yehuda says al pi Torah she'erucha adi kator v'rucha. It's got to be something in the Torah, feir shalach in the Torah, and not something learned out, but something feir Torah and a special teaching via Arucha. It's got to be something where the basic idea is in the Torah, and the rabbis explained it in a certain way. Like Rabbi Yehuda said, Davar she'ikar b'divrei Torah, pirushim b'divrei sofrim, that the pirush is not clear in the Torah. Shimon says, Asher yagidu l'cha min hamakom hahu, afilu koldu, whatever they tell you. If the rabbis and Sanhedrin says any particular halacha that they made up, even if it's halacha d'Rabbanan, he argues with that, that's the second number. Amalei Rav Huna bar Chinan el Rava. So Rav Huna bar Chinan said to Rava, Targamali lahomas nisa Rav Meir. I understand this price that we said yesterday at the top of this page that we started with, that we learned yesterday. We said, what does it mean? Din ladin, bein dam ladam, din ladin, nega lenega, din afashos, din amaminus, din makos, nega, all these things. How are all those things? According to Meir, it's only something where it would be besadon if you did it with malicious intent. You're chayiv kares. How can you explain all of them? So he said, Rav Huna bar Chinan said to Rava, please explain to me, according to Meir, how can you explain this whole brisa that every halacha that he talked about, din ladin, makos thing, all those things can be zera kares? So Rava then turned, Amalei Rava, Papa, you do it. Who go out and Targum Malay, go explain it to him. That's what he said. You go explain to him. To explain like this. And that's what we're going to deal with today. According to Rav Meir's pshat. We'll get to the other ones tomorrow. Again, we're talking about something who was considered a judge, a person who was a rabbi. We said it doesn't have to be the top rabbi, but it has to be somebody who's not a Talmud. Okay. Mimcha ze yoetz, that's a counselor. Now, we said yesterday, yoetz could be an evil counselor. He said like this. We're talking about somebody who's capable of intercalating the year to know when you add an extra month. Kiditanan, listen to this. Hey, Nishim, there was no question. This is Mamish Purim. We're talking about today is Purim. Today is Purim on our calendar. We're Purim today, Yud Dalet Adar. Here's a case of Adar, of Purim. When are you allowed to an extra month? Today we have a fixed calendar. We know 20 years in advance, 100 years in advance. We know when there's going to be an Ibrior. We're going to add an extra month. In those days, they did it by sight, but that's for the new month. But how did they know when to add an extra month? That was based on the crops and when they would estimate. So it should come out that Pesach, like right now we have, the Arabs have Ramadan. It comes out now this year. Tomorrow, next year, in a few years, it'll come out in the winter. It comes out at different times, right? Because they don't have they don't add extra month so that the seasons should come out, Pesach should come out in the spring. So somebody who's able to do that. So what's it? There was a machlokes about these two rabbis, Rabbi Shiur and Rabbi Papaya, said you can add on an extra month anytime in Adar. If let's say in 25th of Adar, a week and a half from now, they say, you know what, we better add an extra month because the crops aren't going to be right? So you can do that. That's what they said, right? Others said, no, only do it till Purim. After Purim, you can't add an extra month on it. You know why? Because on Purim, what is besides Purim? What day of that's Yud Dalet Tesvav, right? Like we have today's Yud Dalet, tomorrow's Tesvav. For that day, you're supposed to start learning Hilchos Pesach 30 days before the Chag. You learn Hilchos Pesach. Well, if the rabbi sent out drashos and explanations and rules and regulations for Pesach, so everybody's going to say, okay, Pesach, we're counting Pesach is in so many days. Now, a week later, you're going to say, no, there's an extra month in there. Who are we supposed to believe? When is Pesach? Well, if you make a mistake on Pesach, what's the problem? You're going to eat chametz for Pesach, chayav karas. There's your karas. The others, rabbi said you can only do it till Purim, no later. right? If you go this way, you're going to be matur chametz pesach. In other words, if they say, right, the rabbi said, don't add on an extra month in the latter part of Adar once later, because people are already learning it was Pesach. They know Pesach is in 2 weeks. They ordered the matzahs. They already cleaning for Pesach. Now you're going to tell them, no, you wait an extra month. They're not going to believe you. So somebody's going to come out violating Pesach. Okay, there's your Zadam. Davar ze halacha. We said kipole mimcha davar. So what do we say? Mimcha is a yoetz who's going to give you bad advice about when, or not bad advice, but the wrong advice in this case. If the Bezdin Agadol says no, Pesach is in 4 weeks, and you're going to say no, it's in 6 weeks. That's no good. That's no good. Somebody's going to come out violating Pesach. Now we've discussed this before many times. Nida Minatora, if she sees dam, she's tummy for 7 days, and then she can go to the mikveh after the 7 days. Azava after the Nida period, after she's 7 days, there's 11 days in which she can become a Zava Gdola. Zava Ktan is if she sees dam for 1 or 2 days. Zava Gdola is 3 days in a row. Now, during that 11-day period, after the 11-day period, she goes back and she would be a Nida again the next time she sees dam. But let's say, in order to be a Zavagdola, which means she has to not only go to the mikveh with Mayim Chaim and she has to bring a carbon 3 days in a row during those 11 days. Let's say she saw dam for the first time on the 10th day. What's the rule? So here we see Ditmar Asiri. If she sees something now on the 10th day, she only has 1 more day, the 11th day. There's no 3 days in a row. If for the first time she saw dam on the 10th day, she can't become a Zavagdola. Because if she sees tomorrow, that's the 11th, and the 12th is already the first day of Nida, so that she wouldn't be a Zava anymore. All right, so Yedma and Adidmar Asir, Rabbi Yochanan Amar Asir Kachi. Asir is like the 9th day. What do you mean like 9th day? Just like in the 9th day, you count Zava because you can count 9, 10, 11. So the same way here, you count 9, 11. In other words, you have to keep 1 day. When she sees 1 day during the 11-day period, she keeps 1 day. She guards herself for 1 day, goes to the mikveh. She can't sleep with her husband on punishment of kares, and the next day she goes to the mikveh. If she doesn't see dam anymore, that's it. She's free. She's clean. If she sees 2 days in a row, the same thing. She guards against the next day. On the 11th day, there's nothing to guard against because the next day she can't be a zava anyway. You understand? Because the next day is already the 12th day. There is no 12th day. That's already beginning of Nida period. So it's like the 11th day, meaning you don't keep. There's nothing to keep. It's not like you can only keep. It could be the guarded day from the 10th, but it can't be. You don't keep it for the 11th. So Rabbi Yochanan Amar Asiri Kachi Machi Boy Shima, just like the 9th day needs Shmira, meaning you have to keep 1 day, stay away from your husband until the next day. A Zava goes to the mikveh during the day, not at night like a Nida. Afasiri boy Shima, the 10th day also needs Shima, just like the 9th day Shima, the Siri also. So according to Rabbi Yochanan, if she sees dam for the first time on the 10th day of the 11-day cycle, 10th day, so she keeps Shima to the 11th day, even though she cannot become a Zava Gdola, because there would no be 3rd day afterwards. The 3rd day is already the time of Nida. It's like so we have machlokas about that. So here the question is, if she saw dam on the 10th day, does she have to guard against the possibility of dam on the next day and stay away from husband or not? Well, it makes a big difference. If you say you need shimur, right? So then she can't sleep with her husband. And if she doesn't need shimur, in other words, if she can just go to the mikveh right away that day, and she doesn't have to keep till the next day. She doesn't have to stay away from her husband the next day. Big machlokas here. It does the 10th day. If she saw on the 10th day for the first time, does she have to keep shmira against the 11th day or not? Well, if she does have to, she'd be chayiv kar. She slept with her husband. So here again, if Rish Lakish and Rabbi Yochanan argue about this, if the Zakan Mamri said one way and the Rabbanan said, and the Sanhedrin said another way, and if you went against the right, if you get against the Chachamim, it would be against the Chachamim. The Chachamim say you have to keep Shmira. And he said, he went like Rish Lakish, who said that you don't have to keep Shmira, right? Then if you violated, you went against the Chachamim, there'd be a Chayiv Karis over there for sleeping with your husband while she's a Zava. It would be a Zava Ketana because she only saw 1 day. But still, she'd be considered a Zava and Chayiv Karis. Mishpat. Mishpat, what is Mishpat? Again, ki pole mimcha davar. We've explained mimcha, we've explained davar, and now we come to Mishpat. Zehadin, judgments. What's that? Din bitum and asaso. Oh, bitum and asaso. We learned before that the Torah doesn't specifically prohibit sleeping with your daughter from a non that was born out of wedlock. Pasuk says you can't sleep with your granddaughters, and the pasuk says you can't sleep with your wife's daughters or granddaughters, right? Damarava, how do we know that Bitam and Saso is also chayiv, and you be chayiv sreifa, just like sleeping with granddaughters, whatever. Damarava, right? Remember we had this pasuk before in Perek Yud. In one pasuk it says Eres bas bimcha bas bitcha lo skal. It doesn't say your daughter. They're talking about unwed, out of wedlock. Another pasuk Eres isho bita, a daughter, a woman, and her your wife and your daughter. Whether it's your daughter, whether this means isha bita, whether a woman and her daughter, isha bita lo skale. As Basma, you can't sleep with a woman and her daughter or her woman and granddaughters. There it says what? Haina, Shara Haina, and Eres Basmim also says Haina. So we learn out one from the other that your daughter out of wedlock, was born out of wedlock, also is usher for you. How do we know it's Sreifa? Because there it says Zimahi in the second pasuk by Eres Ishabita, and it says Bishabita by sleeping with your mother-in-law. So we know that you're chayiv. So how does that affect us over here? If you hold to that drush, okay. So what does that mean here? So here's also davar shizdan chorus. If you sleep with your daughter, we're talking about if you did it b'meisa, you'd be chayiv chorus for it. So there's a case that's learned out davar, and it's learned out. If one held the Russia, one didn't hold Russia, we're talking about something where you could be bitam saso. Is a din that learned out. Right, it's learned out. It's davar shizdan chorus. That's how you can say chorus. What about the next one? Bein dam ledam, bein dam nida, then dam nida, dam leda, dam zviva. The Brisa said all three. Dam nida, dam leda, dam that's when women gives birth, and dam ziva. How are these questions of chorus? Dam nida, listen to this. What happens if you see green blood? Is that dam nida or not, or is that just some excretion from the body? So Akavi ben Halal says metame dam mayorak. It says that's tame. Chum say it's tar. That's not dam. That's not dam. So what would be an afkamina? Rashi explains. Let's say a woman has not seen dam for a long time, right? So the next time she sees dam, she's going to be a nida. But she saw something on Monday. She saw green, something come out of her green. According to Rav Meir Shapiro, she starts counting nida 7 days, right? According to Rabbanan, that's nothing. Then on Wednesday she saw red blood. That's nida for sure, right? So is she in the middle of her 7 days, or does the 7 days start on Wednesday? According to Rabban, it only starts on Wednesday. And therefore, a week later, on let's say Tuesday, a week later, she's still a nida. But according to Kavi ben Mahalel, she started on Monday. By next Tuesday, she's not a nida anymore. So if she sleeps with her husband at that time, according to Kavi ben Mahalel, she's not. According to Chachamim, she's a nida. So it would be an afkamina. When does she start? When does she start? Dam Leda. What about Dam Leda? The plukta to Rav Levi Ditmar, Rav Amram Ayin Echad. We know by Dam Leda, what happens by Dam Leda? When women gives birth, there's Dam that comes out of it. That's not really Dam Nida. Today, we can't tell the difference, etc., etc. We assume the Chumrah. But in those days, if let's say she gave birth to a girl, what's the halacha? For 14 days, the Dam is Tahar. And then for 66 days afterwards, the Dam is Tahar. Did I say Tameh? For the first 14 days, she's Tameh. This next 66 days, it's Tahar. Now, is that one source of blood? Rav says, it's one source of blood. The Torah says 14 days it's tamei. After 14 days it's tar. She goes to the mikveh after 14 days and she can sleep with her husband. Any dam she sees during the next 66 days is tar. It's the same source. It's the same mayan. It's the same spring of what? Right? Rav Omer Mayan Echad Atar Tamasa Atar Taraso. Levi Omer no Shtemis. There's two different sources, right? So Nistam Echa once Nistam Atame. Once that one closes up, then Dam Torah comes out of there. Nistam Torah Niftach Atame. I assume that medically we know today that we go like Rav, that it's really the same source of blood, right? But the Torah says it's some Torah. But Nafkamina would be this. According to the one that says that once it closes, the other one opens. What happens if she gushes between the 14th and the 6th, after the 14th day into the 66th day, she's gushing continuously. So according to Rav, well, the Torah says it's tar, no matter what, even if she was gushing continuously on the 15th day after she gave birth, it's tar. According to Levi, well, if she's continuing to gush, it never stopped. So there's two different sources. The first source never stopped, so she's still tamei. That dam is still tamei. Okay, the nafkamina would be if she slept with her husband at a time when, according to one shita, it's dam tor, according to other shita, it's dam tamei. 5 chorus. There's your chorus right there. So, for example, let's say after the 14th day, according to Rav, Okay, you go to the mikveh on the 14th day, you can sleep with your husband on the 15th day. According to Levi, wait a minute, if the dam never stopped between the 14th and 15th, you didn't give it a chance to stop for the other one to start. They can't both come out at the same time. So according to him, she would be tamei. So a nafkamina would be if the rabbis held one way and the zakim held another way, that would be a of course. Dam ziva, look to Rav Lezer Rav Yeshua, different machlokes, the Tanan. Let's say we said before that if a woman sees 3 days in a row dam during the 11-day cycle after she's a nida, right? After she's a nida, she stops seeing blood. The a nida menatora is if she sees a drop, she's tummy for 7 days, or if she's gushing for 7 days. Either way, after 7 days, she goes to the mikveh and she can sleep with her husband. During the 11 days afterwards, if she saw dam 3 days in a row, she becomes a zava. What happens if she, during the 11-day cycle, she's in labor? Kishta shlosha yom. She was in labor for 3 days, betoch acharas hayom. If she then stopped during, in other words, if she's in labor during the 11 days and she's gushing and gushing and gushing and she gave birth right from the labor, she's not a zava. We assume it's dam leda. Dam leda is not dam zava. Okay, so she's told me for 14 days as leda when she gives birth, but she's not a zava, meaning she doesn't have to count zayin nikiyim. As we count today, a woman who counts zayin nikiyim is because we're afraid she's a zava. So here, if she saw 3 days in a row, but she was in labor, then she's not a zava. But let's say she stopped. The labor pains stopped, not the blood, but the labor pains themselves for 24 hours, noon to noon, let's say, violda, if she stopped, in other words, if she stopped seeing dam, and not seeing dam, if she stopped the labor for 24 hours and then gave birth, then we assume that the 3 days that she saw dam during the Mezava, she's a zava. Not like because the labor stopped in between. Then when she had the baby afterwards, whether it was in with dam or not, with labor or not, but if she stopped the labor for 24 hours, she's no longer and then gave birth afterwards. We don't assume that the 3 days of labor was labor, but we assume that she's a zav. It's not 24 hours ace la ace. It's not noon to noon. It's got to be a full night and day, 24 hours, like Shabbos. It's got to be on it. She stopped saying, we're talking about she stopped means she stopped from the pain, not from the blood. Okay, so what does that mean? That means that Rabbi Shua is more makel. He says that it's always considered labor pains and not zava unless there was a full day and night, meaning 24 hours from shkia to shkia, not 24 hours 8 lay. And so according to him, it's more likely that she's not going to be a zava because she's not going to be a zava because if the pain stopped for a longer period of time, according to Rabbi Yeshua, right? According to Rabbi Yeshua, laila v'yom, just if it stopped for a period of time like that, only then would she be a zava. But if it only stopped during, let's say, noon to noon, 24-hour period, she would still be a zava. So she was more makel. So again, if she is zava or not, if she's a zava, then there would be a chiyav kars for sleeping with her. Bein din ledin, bein din and mamas, and nefashis din and makas. So 3 kinds of din. One is mamas. Din and mamas. We looked at Rav Shmuel of Rabbavu. We had this before the beginning of the Masechta Shmuel. Sham shel din din el shnekim v'eschasav. All right, let's say you need a court. You need a court of 3 people. Let's say there was only 2 people. Is that a judgment or not? According to Shmuel, yes, it is a judgment. It's just considered chatzif. They shouldn't do that. It's improper. But the judgment is a good judgment. So if they gave money, if 2 people judged and said Reuben owes Shimon $100, and that's okay, according to them, you have to give them $100. According to Ravu says that they're called ein din and din. It's not a din at all. So therefore, if they said Reuben should give Shimon $100, Shimon's not entitled to the $100 according to Ravu because that's not a court, and therefore the money if Shimon took the money from Reuben, that's stealing. Let's say Shimon got engaged to somebody with that money, kesef kedushin. According to Rabbi Vu, it's not a marriage. It's stolen money. She's not married. According to Shmuel, it is a marriage, and therefore, it is a marriage, and therefore, you got married according to Shmuel, and another guy came and gave her kedusha. Now, you wouldn't take a get. But according to Rabbi Vu, not married at all. So if another guy gave her answer question, then she slept with the wrong guy, you'd have a chiyuv of kares because is she married or not? Din and Nefashis spoke to Rabbi Rabbana we had before the time. Rabbi Yomer Nasat Nefesh. So let's say 2 guys are fighting, and one guy hits somebody else, right? Hits somebody else. You meant to strike one person, you struck somebody else. We said the Rabbanan say you're chayiv, and Rabbi says you're pater. Right. So what is it? What about nefesh tachos nefesh? Mom, and you got to pay for it. In other words, you only chayiv. There, the Mishnah brought down Rav Shimon. It goes like Rebbe that says, if you hit somebody by mistake, even if you struck him with a blow, you didn't mean to kill him. You only chayiv money, but you're not chayiv misa. So Rebbe says you're chayiv money, whereas the Rabbanan say no, you're not chayiv money. If it was b'mezid, you're chayiv mamon, you're chayiv misa, and if it was b'shogeg, you're not chayiv anything. So is it mammon? Ata omer mammon or ein nefesh? Again, Rebbe says it's mammon or is it maybe it's nefesh mamish. Never nesin lamalam, never nesin lamata. It says over there when you pay for the baby, that's only cash, right? You pay for damage for killing a baby if you hit a pregnant woman. Malol mammon, afkan mammon. So here it's also nefesh tachas nefesh. Nasata means you pay cash. Again, so according to Rabbanan, you're not chayiv money. According to Rebbe, you're chayiv money. So here the difference is, according to Rebbe, chayiv money. So you have to give money for it. Let's say the person was damaged, grab the money. So according to Rebbe, okay, you're entitled to the money, you can Mekadosh Nisha with it. According to the Rabbanan, no, he's not entitled to the money. If it's Mekadosh Nisha with that money, it's not Kedushin. The guy that she marries afterwards is a good Kedushin. Again, you can only marry one person at a time. So if you slept with the wrong guy, right, you slept with the wrong guy, you'd be chayiv koris for that. What do you mean koris? Aren't you chayiv misa b'dei adam for adultery? It would be adultery. Yeah, if you were warned, if there was Edom and Asra, no Edom and Asra, you'd be chayav koris, like Rashi points out. Then in Makos, what are Makos? We'll take Rabbi Shmuel Rabbanim. How many? We had this at the beginning of Masechta. How many judges do you need to mechayev Makos? Is it a court of 23 or a court of 3? That's not Makos begimel. It's a court of 23. You need a court of 23. So what do you mean by that? According to Rabbi Shmuel, you need a court of 23. If a court of 3 determined to get Malchus, you gave Malchus, so what would happen then would be what? You hit this guy unjustly, and you're chayiv to pay him for that. That's lo sachwa. You have to pay for the monetary damages that you hurt this guy, right? That's not Malchus begimel, mishum Rabbi Shmuel and Rechav gimel. So according to Rabbi Shmuel, if a bezin of 3 paskin Malchus and you gave Malchus for him, they'd be chayiv for hurting this guy, and you have to pay money. According to Rabbanan, right? According to Shmuel says you need a court of 23. So if you get him with a court of 3, you have to pay for him. According to the Rabbanan, you give him it's legitimate and you don't have to pay anything. So again, if the person who was hurt took the money, according to Rabbi Shmuel, thinking that he was entitled to it, but according to the Rabbanan, he stole the money. If you Mekadosh Nisha with it, it wouldn't be kedushin. Bei nega lenega. What do you mean? Bei nege adam, nege batam, nege bugaram. 3 kinds of leprosies. Let's say of tsaras. What do you mean? Adam, but pluk to Rabbi Shmuel. Again, what are we talking about over here? We're all bringing down machlokasin, where if you went one way against the rabbis, it could be an issue of kares, right? Because according to one sheet you have kares, according to one you're not. Nige Adam, but pluk to Rabbi Shmuel Rabbanan. The Tanan in Baharis, person had a leprous mark on his body. If it was a bright spot, Kadam Aser came out before the hair came out. This is before the white hair grew out of that spot. Tummy. He's tummy. Im seir lavan. If the white hair was there before the rest, that's tar. Suffolk, if you're not sure, it's a machlokes, right? The Tanakama says Suffolk is tummy. Rabbi Shua says keha. No, it's considered darkened. What do you mean by that? My keha. Amarava keha tar. It's tar. So if machlokes here, if you're not sure what came first, the white hair or the bright spot, it's machlokas whether it's tummy or not. Okay, how does that come to a din kares? Din kares would be this. According to the one who says that you're tummy, if you're tummy and you went into the base of Mikdash now, chayiv kares, right? According to one who says you're not chayiv kares. That's a question of there's your kares. B'shgaga be chayiv chatas. So all these cases are explained according to Rav Meir, where it could come out a case of kares. Nigei batim. What's the bottom? The pluk did Rab Lezer Rab Shimon that we had before of Rabbanan. It's not Rab Lezer Rab Shimon Omer. La'olam and abayis tamei. A house that had a leprous stain on it is not tamei. Ad shiur kishnei gris and al shtei vanim. It's got to be where you had the spot. The leprous spot had to be the size of 2 beans in length on 2 stones. B'shtei some on 2 walls. B'karen's of it's got to be in a corner where it's got to stretch from one to the other. Arko kishnei, the length of the whole spot would be like 2 gris, meaning like 1 gris on each corner, on each wall as they hit into the corner. Baruch b'gris, and the width, in this case, it's really the height, as you look at it, would be like the size of a beam. My time, what's this reasoning? Siv kir, in that parsha, when it talks about a house becoming tummy, it says, Lashon of kir, 1 wall, Siv kiros. Rashi quotes down the pasuk, it says, Rashi says, Shafo minakir, and it says v'hinei anega b'kiros habayis. So it says 1 wall, it says 2 walls. Which wall is like two walls? That's like a corner where it's like their walls are like attached, they're touching each other, right? And that's one wall, but it's really like two walls. So Rav Shimon says, listen, you're not tamei, it's not tamei unless it had a stain like that. So let's say there wasn't a stain like that. The Rabbanan say it doesn't have to be like that. That's Rav Shimon's sheet. According to Rabbanan, it could just be a stain. It could just be a stain. It doesn't have to be on two walls in that corner. So according to Rabbanan, they don't need a Karen's. So let's say it wasn't on a Karen's Shabbos, and a person went into that house. According to Rachgach, and he went to the basement. According to Rabbanan, he'd be chayav kares because he was tummy. According to Rav Shimon, if it wasn't that kind of a stain in the corner on two walls, he wouldn't be tummy. So there would be a machlokas between the Zakan Mamre and the Rabbanan. Again, it could be that according to Rabbanan, you're chayav kares. In this case, according to Rabbanan, you're chayav kares. According to Rav Shimon, you're not. But it could be the other way too. It could be the Rabbanan or Mekel, and the Zakan Mamre is machmir. But still, if he paskin that way, it's a davar shizon a kars shugos achatos. He'd become a zakan marmei, and he'd be killed with chenek according to the laws we said in the Mishnah. One more nigay begodim. How can you have a nega on clothing? But look, there we have machlok between Rav Nassan ben Avtomas Rabbanan. The time of Nassan ben Avtomas Omer. The rule is if a person has saras and it's spread out over his whole body, that's called pricha. It's spread out over the whole body. Then he's tar, even though if he had stains, little spots, he's tamei. But that's a lachon Torah. If it was parach begufo, he's tar. So Tosfos says, how do you know that if it's spread out on a clothing, lepricha begadim shi Torah, that it's tar? Never kadachas v'gavachas. It says a bald spot in the back and a bald spot in the front of a person's head. Ba'adam v'nemer karach v'gavas begadim. Malo and parach begul, just like by a person, if it's spread out over his whole body, he is tar. Afkam parach begul gufo tar. He'd be so here also. If it's spread out over the whole garment, he's also tar. Okay, and therefore, again, the nafkamina would be if he went into the base of Mikdash afterwards, is he tamei or is he not? According to one sheet, he's tamei. According to one, he's not. There would be an nafkamina, would be chayav kores in a machlokas between Zakan Mamre and not, or the Bezal Gol Yerushalayim. Is he a chayav kores or is he not? So here's another issue where we've explained so far, according to Rav Meir, and most of the cases, the other cases we'll see tomorrow, where we explained according to Rav Meir, who says that a Zakan Mamre is only when he differs with the Sanhedrin Gol Yerushalayim about davar shesdon kar shegas achatos. And here we've explained all these different cases where it can come out where it could be a case of cars. Tomorrow's where we'll pick up from there. We'll be on the podcast from Hashem. And on Sunday, listen carefully. On Sunday, we're going to start from the second Mishnah on Pei Tesam Aleph, the second Mishnah. At the end of the narrow lines, the second Mishnah on Pei Tesam Aleph. Tomorrow's podcast will take you till there. Shabbat Shalom, Chag Sameach.
Chag Sameach.
Thank you, Kurt.
Now I can do with both, but in the beginning, Jamie used to get me dressed.
What?
It's sweating.
Why? It's sweating. It's sweating.